3 minutes ago, Princess Anne, Britain's most unflinching royal, stepped before a private gathering of senior aides and dropped a bombshell, the Queen Mother's final handwritten wish, sealed for decades. Reads in stark black ink, "Never let Camilla rule." Anne read the words aloud, voice steady, eyes blazing. The room froze. Tonight we expose the dying command that could rewrite the entire history of the modern monarchy, and why Anne chose this exact moment to break her silence. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The yellowed paper trembled only once when Anne first lifted it from the locked box. Then her fingers steadied, iron grip returning as though the document itself demanded composure. She held it high enough for every aide to see the faded ink, the date scrawled in the Queen Mother's unmistakable hand just weeks before she died. The room went deathly still. One aide's pen clattered to the floor. No one moved to pick it up. Anne's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Never let Camilla rule." Simple. Brutal. Underlined twice with such force the pen had nearly torn the page. The words landed heavier than any coronation oath. Aides exchanged glances, horror at the implication warring with terror at the breach of confidentiality they were now witnessing. Princess Anne has always been the keeper of secrets. Tough. Loyal. Never sentimental. Yet here she stood wielding her grandmother's ghost like a weapon against the current reign. She had guarded the Queen Mother's private papers for 2 decades, honoring the seal that kept them hidden through marriages, deaths, coronations. No one expected her to break that seal. No one expected her to read the words aloud in front of witnesses who could never unhear them. The wish itself was stark 5 words that condemned everything that followed. "Never let Camilla rule." Dated in trembling script, written when the Queen Mother could still hold a pen but knew her time was short. The distrust had simmered for years, whispers in corridors, sidelong glances at Balmoral, but no one had proof. Until now. The emotional fracture happened instantly. Aides felt it in their chests, loyalty to the living sovereign clashing with reverence for the dead. One woman pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes wide with something close to panic. Another stared at Anne as though she had committed treason in real time. Anne herself showed no outward tremor. She read the line once more, slower, letting each syllable sink deeper. "Never let Camilla rule." The repetition was deliberate. A warning. A judgment. A dying command ignored for decades now dragged into daylight. Inner conflict burned behind her steady gaze, betrayal of her brother's wife warring with loyalty to the institution she had served her entire life, and to the grandmother who had shaped it before her. She had wrestled with that conflict alone for years. Today, she chose. The document was never meant to surface during Charles's lifetime. The Queen Mother had sealed it with explicit instructions, open only when the danger became undeniable. Anne believed that moment had arrived. Camilla wore the consort's crown. Influence had hardened into power. The wish could no longer stay buried. Anne did not stop at reading. She authorized copies precise, verified duplicates to be made on the spot. Envelopes were sealed. Trusted couriers waited outside. The papers were sent to select recipients beyond palace walls, people who could ensure the words could never again be silenced. But one sentence was not enough. The Queen Mother left more than a wish. She left a roadmap of warnings, fears, and contingencies that Anne is now determined to follow to the end. Buried with the wish was a second page dated months earlier, detailing the Queen Mother's growing alarm, Camilla's influence, her insidious hold, her willingness to bend rules for personal gain. Anne claims the words were written in private agony, the old queen terrified that her grandson's choice would destroy the monarchy she spent a century protecting. What else did she foresee? And why did Anne wait until now to unleash it? The second page unfolded like a wound reopening. Dated months before the final wish, the handwriting already trembled, less steady, more urgent. The Queen Mother had poured out her dread in sentences that cut deeper with every line. She seeks dominion, not partnership. The words stood alone, underlined once, then twice, for emphasis. Charles is blind to her ambition. That accusation landed heaviest, direct, unflinching, aimed straight at the heart of the family. The crown must not pass through her hands unchallenged. Anne read each phrase slowly. letting the dread settle over the room like smoke. The Queen Mother's public grace, those smiling photographs, the gentle wave from Clarence House windows stood in brutal contrast to the private terror captured here. Shaky script, ink smudged in places as though tears had fallen while she wrote. This was no casual note. This was a dying woman's last stand. Anne felt the fury rise quietly, at first slow, deep, burning beneath her ribs. She had known fragments of her grandmother's unease, heard the whispers over tea at Sandringham, seen the sidelong glances whenever Camilla entered a room. But seeing it written, seeing the fear spelled out in trembling letters, turned unease into rage. The warnings predicted exactly the power dynamics now strangling the monarchy. Camilla's quiet consolidation, her influence hardening into something unbreakable, her presence at the center of decisions that once belonged only to the sovereign. The Queen Mother had seen it coming decades earlier. She had begged her grandson to look clearly. He had not. Anne's voice remained level as she continued reading, but the tightness in her throat betrayed the storm inside. Every line implicated Charles's judgment as much as Camilla's ambition. He had chosen love over warning. He had chosen Camilla over the legacy entrusted to him. References to certain arrangements appeared next, legal, financial, symbolic barriers the Queen Mother had tried to erect. Private trusts quietly drafted to limit access to certain funds. Codicils prepared for the succession documents. Even symbolic gestures, public roles withheld, titles deferred designed to keep Camilla's reach contained. None had survived. Charles had quietly dismantled them one by one after his grandmother's death. Anne felt the betrayal like a fresh cut. The Queen Mother had fought alone in her final months, weakened by age and illness, yet determined to protect what she had helped build. She had failed. Or so it seemed until Anne chose to reopen the fight. One warning struck Anne hardest. Tucked near the bottom, almost an afterthought yet underlined with fierce intention, the children of the Wales line are the true safeguard of the future. The Queen Mother had foreseen the Wales children, William's heirs, as the bulwark against what she feared Camilla would become. Anne's breath caught. Those children were now grown. Their own children walking in processions, wearing the weight of expectation. The document ended with stark instructions: open only when the danger becomes undeniable. Anne had carried those words for years, weighing them against loyalty, against family, against the living king she loved. She had waited until the coronation passed, until Camilla's crown was placed, until the moment she could no longer pretend the danger was distant. That danger became undeniable the moment Charles placed the crown on Camilla's head. Anne believes the time her grandmother foresaw has arrived, and she is ready to act. Anne's revelation cuts straight to the coronation itself. The moment Charles crowned Camilla, he broke his grandmother's dying command in front of the world. The Queen Mother had begged in her final weeks that no crown ever touch Camilla's head. Anne claims she watched the ceremony with the letter burning in her pocket, knowing the promise had been shattered. What happened in the days after that crowning, and why did Anne stay silent until now? Anne sat in the abbey that day with the sealed letter pressed against her heart like a hidden blade. Her face remained a mask of perfect composure, chin level, eyes forward. Every inch the dutiful princess, but inside the wound bled fresh. She felt the Queen Mother's betrayal in every pulse, a physical ache that sharpened when the Archbishop lifted the crown toward Camilla's head. The old queen had extracted a verbal promise from Charles years earlier, whispered in private moments at Clarence House: never marry her, never elevate her, never place the weight of sovereignty on shoulders she deemed unworthy. Charles had nodded, then younger, still grieving, still searching for happiness. He had promised, and he had broken that promise before the eyes of millions. The emotional gut punch came later, when Anne reread her grandmother's plea in the quiet of her own rooms. Do not let love blind you to duty. The words were written in frail script, ink faint from a trembling hand, yet they carried the force of thunder. Anne had memorized them long ago. Now they accused her brother directly, filial betrayal laid bare. Charles's decision framed itself as the ultimate abandonment of the legacy entrusted to him. He had chosen personal fulfillment over the solemn vow made to a dying woman who had shaped the monarchy through war and peace. Anne questioned herself in those hours after the ceremony, whether exposing this now would destroy his legitimacy forever, or whether silence would doom the institution her grandmother had fought to preserve. The conflict tore at her. Loyalty to family clashed with loyalty to the crown's integrity. She stayed silent through the anthems, through the balcony wave, through the cheers. Respect for the occasion held her tongue. Patience, however, had limits. Witnesses later reported Camilla smiling during the anointing, a small private curve of the lips that Anne interpreted as deliberate defiance. She believes Camilla knew of the Queen Mother's opposition, had perhaps even been told in veiled terms, and relished breaking the unspoken barrier. The smile haunted Anne. It turned a sacred moment into something triumphant for one woman and tragic for another. The Queen Mother had begged that no crown touch Camilla's head. Camilla wore it anyway. Anne carried that image like poison. She kept silent through the day out of reverence for the ritual itself, out of respect for the thousands who had gathered, for the history that unfolded beneath those ancient stones. But the moment the crown settled, her patience ended. In the days that followed the coronation, Anne wrestled alone with the next step. She reread the wish. She reread the warnings. She felt the Queen Mother's ghost urging her forward. The silence she had maintained became unbearable. The promise had been shattered publicly. The truth could no longer remain private. She chose her moment, carefully waiting until the coronation glow faded, until the world began asking questions about the new reign. Then she acted. The next document Anne released was a private letter from the Queen Mother to Charles, never answered. That unanswered letter contained the Queen Mother's final plea and the evidence Anne is now using to challenge Camilla's place at the center of power. The letter, dated 3 weeks before the Queen Mother's death, was addressed only to Charles. Anne read it aloud, a desperate, tear-stained plea to reconsider Camilla, warning that she will eclipse you, then destroy what we built. Charles never replied. Anne claims the silence broke her grandmother's heart, and now she is forcing the world to hear what he refused to answer. What else was in that final correspondence? The paper itself looked fragile, thin, almost translucent, edges curled from years locked away. Anne handled it with reverent care, yet her voice carried a tremor of barely contained outrage when she began to read. I see her ambition clearly. The Queen Mother had written, the script unsteady but determined. You risk everything for a woman who loves power more than you. Ink smudged in places, dark spots where tears had fallen while the pen moved. Frailty bled from every line. The old queen had sat in her final weeks, body failing, yet mind sharp enough to foresee the ruin she believed Camilla would bring. She had poured out warnings she had never dared speak aloud in life, Camilla's charm masking calculation, her hold tightening like ivy on stone. Each sentence carried the weight of a woman who had watched empires shift and knew exactly how fragile crowns truly were. Anne's fury rose quietly at first, then sharpened into something fierce and intimate. She truly realized in that moment her brother had ignored the dying wish of the woman who had raised him through childhood, who had shaped his understanding of duty when his own mother could not. The silence that followed the letter's delivery had broken the Queen Mother's heart more surely than illness ever could. Charles had chosen not to answer. He had let the words die with her. Anne felt the betrayal like a physical wound, sharp, deep, personal. Camilla's coronation now stood framed as direct defiance of those final words. The crown placed on Camilla's head became the visible proof that love had triumphed over duty, that personal happiness had outweighed sacred promise. Anne's voice cracked once when she reached the line about eclipse and destruction. She paused, steadied herself, continued. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Inner conflict tore at her even as she read. Family loyalty pulled one way. Charles was her brother, the king she had served without question. Duty to her grandmother's memory pulled harder. The Queen Mother had trusted her with these papers, with this final act of guardianship. Exposing them now meant shattering what remained of family cohesion. Yet silence meant endorsing the very betrayal the old queen had feared. Anne carried both burdens at once, love for her brother, reverence for her grandmother, and the weight threatened to crush her. She read on anyway. The revelation deepened. The letter mentioned safeguards the Queen Mother had attempted in her final clarity, trusts, quietly drafted to limit certain influences, codicils prepared for succession documents, private agreements drawn up with trusted lawyers, all designed to keep Camilla's reach contained. Every safeguard had been quietly dismantled after her death. Charles had ignored them. Anne felt the fury crest into something colder, more resolute. The Queen Mother had fought alone in her last days. She had failed then. Anne would not fail now. One final hint lingered at the bottom of the page, a single name, written in a trembling postscript. A confidant who had helped draft the letter, who had witnessed the Queen Mother's anguish firsthand. That confidant is still alive, and has agreed to speak. The confidant's testimony is devastating, but it is only the beginning of what Anne plans to reveal next. The Queen Mother's closest confidant, silent for 20 years, has come forward at Anne's request. In a protected interview, she confirms, the dying Queen begged Charles to abandon Camilla, warning she will bring ruin. She describes secret meetings, destroyed drafts, and one final attempt to block the marriage legally. Why speak now? Because Anne asked, and because the crown Camilla wears was never meant to be hers. Her voice arrives fragile yet resolute, cracked by age but sharpened by memory. She speaks slowly, pausing often to steady herself, each word carrying the weight of decades held in silence. She recalls the Queen Mother's final weeks with painful clarity. The old queen propped against pillows in Clarence's house, tears streaming unchecked as she dictated the letter to Charles. She wept while she spoke, the confidant says, her own voice trembling now. She wept because she knew he would not listen. The dictation took hours, sentences rewritten, phrases sharpened, every warning honed like a blade. The Queen Mother had seen Camilla's ambition grow unchecked. She had watched her grandson become entangled in a relationship she believed would prove fatal to the monarchy. She will bring ruin, the confidant repeats, echoing the exact words she had transcribed while the Queen Mother's hand shook on the bedside table. Tears fall again as she says them, tears for the woman she served, tears for the promise that died with her. The major bombshell lands without warning. The confidant reveals attempts to insert clauses into royal marriage protocols, legal language drafted in secret. Clauses that would have barred Camilla from ever being styled queen consort. Lawyers were summoned to Clarence's house under cover of night. Drafts were prepared. Arguments rehearsed. The Queen Mother intended them to be presented quietly, framed as tradition, rather than personal vendetta. Charles blocked every effort. He refused meetings. He refused discussion. He simply let the drafts die. The confidant's voice breaks when she describes the final meeting, the Queen Mother, barely able to sit upright, pleading with her grandson through intermediaries. Do not let her wear the crown, she had begged. I will not live to see her crowned. The words hang in the air, raw and devastating. The confidant weeps openly now, shoulders shaking, the grief as fresh as if it happened yesterday. Conflict surges to a peak. The confidant does not soften her accusation. Charles chose love over duty, breaking sacred promises made to the woman who had raised him when duty demanded everything else. She frames the coronation as the ultimate betrayal. The moment the crown touched Camilla's head became the moment the Queen Mother's dying wish was publicly crushed. Anne listens to the recording in private, head bowed, torn between vindication and grief. Vindication because every word confirms what she has long suspected. Grief because the brother she loves stands accused of the one sin the Queen Mother could never forgive, putting self before sovereign. The contrast tears at her love for Charles, warring with reverence for the grandmother who shaped them both. Then comes the twist that stops breath. The confidant possesses one surviving draft of the blocked codicil smuggled out, hidden for 2 decades, now in Anne's hands. It names specific consequences if Camilla ever wears the crown: exclusion from state councils, limitations on public role, even symbolic gestures stripping her of certain privileges. Anne hints at the release: calm, deliberate, unyielding. If she does not step back, Anne says in a separate statement, the world will see exactly what my grandmother feared. The codicil waits, loaded and lethal. Those consequences were never enforced until Anne decided the time had come to enforce them herself. Princess Anne delivered her ultimatum in a private letter to Camilla. Step back from public duties or the full contents of the Queen Mother's papers, including the codicil, will be released. Camilla refused. Anne responded by leaking the first page of the codicil. The palace is in chaos. What happens when a princess wages war on a queen consort, using her grandmother's dying words? The letter arrived at Clarence's house sealed with Anne's personal crest simple, unadorned, deadly serious. Inside the words were polite yet lethal. Honor my grandmother's wish or the world will know why she wrote it. No threats of scandal. No bluster. Just the calm certainty of someone who had already decided the cost. Camilla read it once, then again, fingers tightening until the paper creased. Fury erupted behind closed doors' private meltdown. Aides later whispered. She paced, voice rising in sharp, bitten-off sentences. Treason against the crown, she hissed. Anne thinks she can dictate to a queen. Blame poured out in waves. Anne's jealousy, Anne's resentment, Anne's refusal to accept the new order. The outburst ended as suddenly as it began. Camilla sat, composed once more, eyes cold. Refusal came swiftly. No step back. No concession. Only defiance. Charles received copies of both the ultimatum and the refusal. He collapsed into silence. Caught between wife and sister, he refused to choose. He stared at the papers as though they might vanish if ignored long enough. The king, who had waited decades for his moment, now found himself paralyzed by it. Aides watched him age in real time, shoulders rounding, eyes hollow. He spoke once, voice barely audible. She was my grandmother. The words hung there, unfinished. He could not finish the thought. Loyalty to Camilla pulled one way. Memory of the Queen Mother pulled harder. He chose neither. He chose inaction. Anne sat alone in her study that night. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. She reread the Queen Mother's words by lamplight, fingers tracing the faded ink, as though she could feel her grandmother's hand still pressing the pen. Tears fell then for the first time since the revelation began. Silent. Steady. They dropped onto the page, blurring the ink she had guarded so long. Grief and resolve mingled in that moment. She had never cried publicly. She never would. But here, in solitude, she allowed the pain to surface. The contrast cut deep, success in forcing truth into daylight, suffering in watching her family fracture under the weight of it. She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. The war was not over. Courtiers divided in the days that followed. Some quietly supported Anne, whispers in corridors, encrypted messages of encouragement. They saw her as the last guardian of integrity, the one willing to do what others would not. Others were terrified of the fallout, careers, reputations, the fragile stability of the reign itself. The palace hummed with tension. Meetings grew shorter, voices lower. No one knew who would break first. Then came the twist. Anne leaked the first page of the codicil. The document demanded Camilla's exclusion from any role in governance or succession council. The words were precise, legal, damning. They appeared on front pages within hours. The palace descended into chaos, phones ringing unanswered, aides scrambling, denials drafted then discarded. Anne held the remaining pages. She was prepared to release them one by one if necessary. Each leak would tighten the noose further. Camilla countered with her own threat. Documents surfaced carefully curated, suspiciously timed, hinting at Anne's own past indiscretions. Financial questions around patronage, old racing debts, whispers of conflicts never fully resolved. The attack was brutal, personal, designed to destroy credibility before Anne could strike again. Camilla's counterstrike is coming, but Anne holds the Queen Mother's final card, and she intends to play it. Camilla struck back within hours, leaked memos suggesting Anne has financial conflicts of interest tied to royal patronage. Palace allies whisper Anne's motives are personal jealousy, resentment, revenge. The attack is brutal, calculated, designed to discredit before Anne can release more. But Anne is ready. What happens when two royals go to war with secrets instead of swords? The counter leak hit like a sudden blade in the dark. Memos surfaced dated, stamped, seemingly official, implying Anne had benefited improperly from racing patronage linked to the Queen Mother's estate. Payments routed through obscure trusts, sponsorships that appeared too generous. Questions raised about undeclared income. The documents carried just enough detail to sting, just enough ambiguity to spread. Palace allies moved fast. Whispers became murmurs, became headlines. Anne's revelations were not noble. They were personal. Jealousy over Camilla's position. Resentment at being sidelined. Revenge for years of perceived slights. The narrative shifted overnight. Public opinion fractured. Some clung to Anne's truth, others turned, calling her bitter, disloyal, a destroyer wearing the mask of duty. Anne read the accusations in her study, alone, the same room where she had wept over her grandmother's words. The emotional gut punch landed hard. She realized in that moment Camilla would burn everything to protect her crown family, legacy, truth itself. The memos were vicious, personal, aimed straight at Anne's integrity. Her hands shook once, then steadied. Fury followed cold, focused, lethal. She had expected resistance. She had not expected betrayal this naked. The contrast cut deep. Success in forcing secrets into daylight now threatened to drown in manufactured scandal. She questioned herself for one heartbeat whether the fight was worth destroying what remained of family, whether exposing the Queen Mother's wish would leave only ashes. Then resolve hardened again. She would not bend. She would not break. Conflict escalated in real time. Public divided sharply. Supporters rallied behind Anne, reformers, parents, ordinary people who saw her as the last honest voice in a poisoned court. Critics grew louder, traditionalists branding her a traitor, accusing her of tearing down the monarchy for private grudges. The palace corridors buzzed with fear. Courtiers chose sides quietly. Some slipped Anne notes of encouragement, others avoided her gaze. The war had no armies, only secrets, and both sides wielded them like knives. Then came the twist that shifted the ground. Anne's team, loyal aides working in shadows, uncovered the truth. The financial conflicts documents were forged. Signatures mismatched. Dates impossible. Paper stock too modern for the supposed era. Camilla's fabrication, clumsy under scrutiny yet vicious in intent. Anne felt the power shift back to her in an instant. She prepared to expose the forgery calmly, methodically, with evidence that would leave no room for doubt. The weapon Camilla had thrown would be turned against her. The next release was scheduled, Anne's final blow, time to land when the counterleak still dominated headlines. Charles intervened at the last moment. A private summit was demanded immediate. Locked, no aides, no records. The king's voice, when the message arrived, carried desperation he could no longer hide. That summit could end the war or ignite the final explosion that brings the monarchy down. Buckingham Palace, locked chamber. Anne, Camilla, Charles face to face. Anne lays the Queen Mother's full papers on the table. Camilla counters with her forged dossier. Charles sits between them, silent, broken. One wrong move, and the monarchy fractures forever. What was said in that room, and who walked out holding the future? The answer will determine whether the crown survives or falls. The heavy door sealed with a finality that swallowed sound. Anne placed the Queen Mother's papers in the center of the table, yellowed pages. Trembling script, the full weight of a dying woman's command. She did not sit. She stood. Voice low and lethal. Never let Camilla rule. The words rang out again, slower this time, each syllable a hammer strike. Camilla's eyes narrowed to slits. Bitter fiction from a dying woman, she snapped. Your grandmother hated me because she feared losing control. She's gone. I'm here. The dismissal was sharp, deliberate, meant to wound. Anne did not flinch. She turned the first page. She begged you to reconsider. She said to Charles, "You never answered." Charles's face crumpled. Tears fell unchecked as Anne read aloud the full plea warnings of ambition, of ruin, of love-blinding duty. He heard his grandmother's voice in every line, frail yet fierce, the woman who had raised him when the world expected perfection. Heartbreak carved deeper with each sentence. He reached out once, fingers hovering over the paper as though he could touch her again. The room shrank around the three of them. Anne accused Camilla of theft of legacy, stealing the throne that had been explicitly denied. Camilla fired back without hesitation. Treason against the living sovereign, she hissed. You wield a dead woman's grudge like a weapon. You would destroy everything for pride. Every word was a blade, aimed to cut Anne's credibility to ribbons. The power struggle reached its climax. Charles sat trapped between them, wife on one side, sister on the other. The king who had waited a lifetime for his crown now faced the moment it might cost him everything. Anne spoke first. Honor the wish. Withdraw from public role. The papers stay sealed. Silence stretched. Camilla laughed short. Bitter. Never. Charles's voice broke the quiet. I ignored the warnings, he admitted, barely above a whisper. Because I loved her more than duty. The confession landed like a death knell. Tears streamed down his face. He had chosen Camilla over his grandmother's dying command. The truth stripped him bare, king, yet broken. Anne offered silence in exchange for Camilla's permanent withdrawal from governance, from council, from the public face of the crown. Camilla refused. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. Push further and I expose more. The threat hung heavy: documents, allegations, secrets she claimed could destroy Anne's standing forever. No names. No details. Just the promise of ruin. Anne met her gaze without blinking. The codicil lay between them, its consequences still unread. Charles tried to speak, voice cracking, pleading for peace. Neither woman yielded. The summit ended without agreement. Only silence remained, and the promise of more leaks. Anne gathered the papers. Camilla rose first, back straight, chin high. Charles remained seated, staring at the empty space where his grandmother's wish had lain. The door opened. No one spoke as they left. The monarchy waited in the corridor outside, breath held, future uncertain. The papers are still in Anne's hands. The ultimatum stands, and the monarchy waits to see whether truth or survival will win. Anne has not yet released the final pages. Camilla has not stepped back. Charles remains paralyzed. The Queen Mother's wish hangs over the throne like a sword. Public opinion fractures. Some call for Camilla's removal. Others defend her as the king's choice. The monarchy teeters. Was Anne's revelation salvation or destruction? One truth is certain: nothing will ever be the same. And somewhere the Queen Mother's voice still waits to be heard in full. Leaks continue in controlled bursts, each one timed, measured, chipping away at Camilla's legitimacy like water-wearing stone. A single sentence from the codicil surfaces one week. A warning from the Queen Mother the next. Headlines cycle without mercy: Anne's sword of truth, Camilla's crown in question, the dying wish that won't die. The palace issues denials that grow thinner with every release. Public opinion splits jaggedly down the middle. Traditionalists rage against Anne's disloyalty. Reformers quietly celebrate her as the last honest voice left standing. Social media becomes a battlefield. Hashtags trend for days. Petitions demand Camilla's withdrawal. Counter-petitions defend the king's right to choose his queen. The monarchy teeters on a knife edge, every new leak pushing it closer to the drop. Anne stands almost alone now. Traditionalists vilify her in print and on air: traitor, destroyer, the princess who would burn the house down to prove a point. She walks corridors that once welcomed her with deference. Now they fall silent when she passes. Yet quiet support arrives in unexpected places: encrypted messages from younger courtiers, handwritten notes slipped under doors, anonymous voices in the press calling her the guardian of integrity. Isolation clings to her like damp stone. She eats meals alone, answers questions with measured calm, carries the weight of every fractured bond without complaint. The cost is etched in her posture: shoulders squared against the wind, eyes steady but shadowed. She chose truth over comfort. She pays the price every waking hour. Camilla retreats further from view. Public appearances dwindle to almost nothing. Charity events postponed. Balcony waves canceled. Official statements brief and brittle. Her silence grows louder than any declaration. Behind closed doors, the retreat is absolute: staff reassigned, schedules erased. The once commanding presence reduced to whispers in empty rooms. The woman who shaped narratives now has none left to shape. The contrast is brutal, from quiet dominance to enforced invisibility, from architect of power to ghost in her own story. Charles fades visibly. Official bulletins cite exhaustion. Nothing dramatic, nothing conclusive, but absence speaks louder than words. Public duties delegated, audiences postponed. The king retreating into private rooms where the weight of betrayal presses heaviest. He carries the grief of a man who loved deeply and discovered the love was built on sand. The man who waited a lifetime for the crown now watches it teeter, unsure whether to defend it or let it fall. The emotional legacy settles like dust after an explosion. Family bonds lie in ruins, siblings estranged, children caught in crossfire. Generations of shared history fractured by secrets too long buried. Yet beneath the suffering glimmers a faint, painful possibility: purification. The institution, stripped of its shadows, might finally breathe freely. Transparency could replace secrecy. Duty could mean service rather than survival at any cost. Anne believes it still. She must. The alternative is too bitter to bear. Then comes the final, quiet twist. An anonymous source contacts select journalists, voice distorted, origin untraceable. One last document exists, the message reads. Written by the Queen Mother on her deathbed. No proof accompanies the claim. Only the promise of another layer waiting to be peeled back. The words ignite fresh speculation. Reporters chase shadows. Palace officials issue denials too swift, too emphatic. Anne hears the rumor and feels the chill deepen. She wonders if her grandmother left one final safeguard. She wonders if the work is truly finished. The future of the crown now hangs on a single unanswerable question. Can truth and tradition coexist, or must one destroy the other to survive? The monarchy endures for now, scarred, exposed, uncertain. Whether it heals or collapses depends on what happens next. And what happens next remains hidden, waiting in the dark like an unopened door. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.